Hello students, welcome to the video tutorial classes of biology. I am your teacher Sujoy Bhomik, and together we are going to learn about the different aspects of life and living organism. Now before starting any particular chapter, let me discuss about the different parts of your syllabus. Now your syllabus is divided into 5 units. The unit 1 which we are going to start today is the diversity in the living world. Second unit is dealing with the structural aspect of the living organism. Third unit is dealing with the cellular biology. Third one and fourth one is respectively plant physiology and animal physiology. So without wasting any more time, let's start the first chapter of your book, that is the living world. Now the first question which arises is, what is life, or how to define the life? Now, there are some certain characteristics of living organism, and culmination of these characteristics can be defined as the life. That means a object which is showing growth, having the capability of the reproduction, can show metabolism, have some cellular organization, or it have some consciousness, is showing the characteristics of the living organism, and culmination of all this thing is the life. Now one by one we are going to discuss about the different aspects of the living characteristics. So first one is the growth. Now what is the growth? Growth is the increase in mass and number. Now growth occurs due to the cellular division. Now plant cell, animal cell both show cellular division, but plant cell shows continuous cell division while the animal shows it up to a certain age. Like if I take example of our bone cells, it will only increase up to the age of 15 to 18. After that, the bone growth totally ceases. Division of the cells also takes place when there is any damage, or if there is any need of replacement of the older cell, because older cell loses the capability of different acts or different activities. Next, in case of the unicellular organism, division occurs only to increase their number, so there is no growth actually in their body. Growth also includes the increase in the body mass. That means if you are putting some weight on, then obviously you are growing. But in case of the non-living things also we can see that there is a growth. Like in case of the mountain, sometimes you can see because of the accumulation of the different materials like the sand, slates, etc., they also increase in the mass. So can we say they are living organism? The answer is obviously no. So growth cannot be a defining property. That means by this characteristics only you cannot distinguish between a living and non-living organism. Moving into the second criteria of the life, that is the reproduction. So organism reproduces so that their number will be maintained thoroughly. Now what is the reproduction? Reproduction is the production of the progeny which looks similar to them. Two types of reproduction are there, asexual and the sexual mode of reproduction. Unicellular organism like the amoeba, bacteria and chlamydomonas, this type of organism multiply and increase in the number. This is some way you can say that this is growth. So in case of the unicellular organism, the growth and reproduction is almost same. Now there are actually two terms, growth and reproduction, we have already learned. In case of the unicellular it is same, but in case of the multicellular organism, like if I am taking example of these things like the hydra, there is a plant example, and the humans, here growth and reproduction, they are separated. Now reproduction can be considered as the defining characteristics of the living organism, because you will never find it out that a non-living material is actually been reproducing or it is been producing an alike object. So this is a very distinguishable characteristic. Next is the metabolism. Now we know about this thing. Every organism is made up of cell, and within the cell there are different types of chemicals which are known as the biomolecules. Now production and the breakage of this particular chemicals are known as the metabolic reactions, and all metabolic reaction together is known as the metabolism. Now, non-living things cannot produce or break any type of chemical inside them. So, non-living things cannot metabolize, while we are actually producing many type of chemicals ranging from the different types of biomolecules, enzymes, vitamins, etc. inside our cell. Cellular organization of the body is defining feature of the life form, because the thing is that if you are breaking any particular object, that might be a living or non-living, you will find it out there are some building units. In our case, the building unit is the cell. In other non-living things, you will never find it out any cellular organization or cell-like things. Now, two types of metabolisms are actually being seen. Anabolism, where the dry weight of the cell is increasing, that means accumulation of the mass is taking place, while the catabolism, where the dry weight is decreasing, that means the cellular mass is decreasing. The two example, very classical example is given, the photosynthesis, where the accumulation of glucose is taking place, so the weight of the cell and the organism will increase, while this is the respiration, where the glucose has been broken down into the water and carbon dioxide, both will be eliminated out of the body. And don't forget about the energy. So this things is the classical example of catabolism, the photosynthesis, the classical example of the anabolism. Next is the consciousness. Now, whenever we are living in the environment, every time we are getting stimulated by different types of environmental stimulus. Like different types of stimulus are there, like heat is there, humidity is there, light is there, sound is there. Now each and every living organism have some senses through which they can actually sense different types of stimulus or changes in the physical or chemical situation of the environment. Like in case of the plant, they can detect the presence of the light, water, increment of the temperature, etc. We can also do the same. So this particular criteria or the characteristics through which we are identifying the changes in our environment is the consciousness. Now this is the another most important aspect through which we can distinguish between the non-living and living organism. Consciousness is present only in the living organism. Now the diversity of the living world. Now what is the biodiversity? Biodiversity means in our earth there are different types of organism ranging from the unicellular one to the multicellular one. So this variety of the different organism is considered as the biodiversity. As slowly our life forms have been evolved, they have included variation inside their body, and slowly they actually get differentiated from the others, and they accumulated different types of characteristics and looks, and hence we have got different types of plants and animals. Now the number of the species right now, there is an estimation number that is 1.7 to 1.8 million of different types of life form is existed right now. Within that, we have written documentation of around half of this number. So this is actually giving you an idea that how vast our living kingdom is. Now we are going to learn about the classification. Now as I told you, we have a large biomass. So if we have to know about them, first of all we have to categorize them in a proper manner. Until and unless we are categorizing them, it will be impossible for us to understand how and why we are learning about them. So first of all, we are going to learn about two terms, taxonomy and the systematics. Taxonomy is the classification of the living organism into different taxa based on their characteristics. So this is actually the science of classification. Now, how we are actually been categorizing, or what are the basics of the taxonomy? First, we are characterizing them. That means what are their characters, how we are actually identifying them. So characterizing, then identifying it, then classifying. That means similar things will be classified into a similar class. Non-similar things will be into different classes. And last of all, we have to give a proper name. Last one is the systematics. Systematics is the relationship between the organism. That means how they have been originated from another organism. The thing is that at the origin we have a single life form which slowly differentiated into many life forms. So we can say that we are actually being joined with each other with a common lineage. So systematics deal with this lineage evolutionary relationship. Now, nomenclature. We have discussed the taxonomy. Last point was the nomenclature, that is the practice of naming. Now, practice of naming is a very common culture in the human society. We all have a name. So why in the scientific field we have a special tool, that is the nomenclaturing tool? Now the thing is that every organism has a local name, but we don't use this. Biologists cannot use the local name because local names are misleading. Suppose an example I am giving here: jellyfish, silverfish, cuttlefish and the starfish. Everything is ending with the fish, but neither of them is a true fish. Jellyfish, this is actually a invertebrate. Silverfish, this is an insect. Cuttlefish, this is actually a mollusk that is belonging to the octopus. Starfish, this is also an invertebrate and this is also belonging to the last phylum Echinodermata. So none of them is actually fish rightfully. So there is no relationship between them. Similarly, another problem is there. A single organism is actually being known differently in different languages. Like if I take example of a very common vegetable, that is the onion. In English it is known as the onion. In your vernacular language it is obviously different. In Hindi it is called the pyaz. In Bengali pyaj. It is little bit similar, but if you go to the Maharashtra, there they will call it kanda. So obviously it will be difficult for everyone to understand what the other is actually telling. So in the scientific field we never use this type of local names. So that is why we have different codes for naming. Like in the plants we have international code for botanical nomenclature, while in for the animal we have the international code of zoological nomenclature. So according to these codes we are actually naming, and these names are known as the scientific name. The aim of the scientific name is to ensure that all organisms, each organism has only one name, and that should not be misleading. Now, who actually been formulated this rules of nomenclature? Right now I actually discussed that the botanical and zoological nomenclature, these rules have been established, but who actually first established this basic rules? So you will come to know about this person. He is Carolus Linnaeus, who first published a book, Systema Naturae, and there he actually written about the binomial nomenclature. According to his rules, each and every organism should have two names. First one should be a genus name, second one should be a species name. Or in his book, he actually written specific epithet, that is the species name. So according to his rules, biological names should be written in Latin. That means the Latin language word should be used there. And when you are writing the names, it should be written in italics. That means your letter should be inclined to the left side. But normally when we are writing in the copy or we are writing in the paper, always we are inclined in some other directions. So at that time we underline each word. Second rule is that first word of the scientific name should be the genus name and the second word should be the species name. Both words of biological name should be underlined separately when handwritten and italics if printed. So I discussed about this thing previously. Fourth rule was the first word denoting genus start with the capital letter and specific epithet or species name should start with the small letter. So these are the basic rules of the nomenclature which was discussed by Carolus Linnaeus. So this was our today's discussion. Hope you have understood it well. Thank you.